Alabama has an issue, Caleb. If an issue that is very serious, what can you tell me about the University of Alabama? And I'll tell you what I think about this.
They have got two issues that broke within one day. One, Matt Self, one of the senior members of the university's athletic department, according to AL.com, was arrested Sunday by Tuscaloosa police on a domestic violence charge. The same day that happens, according to ESPN, now this is the wildest story I've ever read. Ohio, sports gambling is legal in Ohio. They have halted betting on Alabama baseball games after suspicious activity. No idea what those is. Obviously, these two things are not connected. But something, when you take those two things and have it follow the Brandon Miller incident, something's going on with Alabama athletics, guys. There's no way around it.
Let me tell you what I know from talking to bookmakers and those guys. This gambling issue seems small because it's just baseball, right? But the way that they determine exactly these steps as far as not taking bets is when a lot of money comes in on one side. And if there is any sort of gambling issue, they will make someone an example and a scapegoat. And this is going to happen at some point. Somebody's going to have an app on their phone. We're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids. And if you're sharing information or anything, at some point they're going to make an example of somebody. I don't know who that is. Could be anybody from Washington to Miami. I don't know. But it's going to happen. And I would be most concerned about that between the two issues. Because if the baseball players know the football players know the basketball players, they a lot of times hang out. That could be a monster issue, Caleb.
Yes, and this goes a little deeper. Guys, the first scapegoat of betting on NFL once all this legalized gambling happened was Calvin Ridley, was it not?
Yep. Yes, and where's he from?
Alabama.
Oh.
5 players now just recently got suspended in the NFL again for betting. One of them was Jamison Williams.
Where's he from?
Alabama. Guys, there is a here's the real question. Is there a gambling problem happening with Alabama athletics? I mean, I'm not naming any names. I'm not trying to be... This isn't defamation because I'm not specifying anything, but I'm looking at the evidence. There's been a lot of incidents related to Alabama and people from Alabama with suspicious betting activity happening in the past 2 years.
That would worry me more than just about anything else. You can pay players now. I mean, this is the new paying players, guys, moving forward. This is all alleged. We're not making any jumps to conclusion. But this is the new paying players. This is what can get you the death penalty. I'm not saying Alabama is going to get the death penalty. Okay, so don't even post that on the YouTube message board. Or do, because it showed you watched it. But at the end of the day, man, if this is the same thing as paying players, that who got in trouble for paying players out of Memphis? Alabama.
Dana, I'm sorry?
Alabama.
Oh, yeah, Alabama, you're right.
It means.
Mm-hmm. He did.
So if there is a gambling issue, this will be the come down hard on somebody because it goes to the Pete Rose thing. The integrity of the sport is so important. If I thought at all, if somebody called me and said, your favorite sport is fixed because players are doing things to change the outcome, that's the end of me watching that sport.
Yes.
I can watch reality TV, which is the most unreal thing on TV. It's all made up and it's all scripted. That's not what I want to watch. I like watching something where the outcome is undetermined.
Exactly.
Somebody said NBA. I'm a Celtics fan. Watched them choke away last night. I'm done with the NBA. Somebody said college football. that would be a real struggle for me professionally, but I would be somewhat done. I mean, that to me is the one thing that could undermine any sport. And with the way gambling is prevalent, it is going to happen. And it's going to be as big or bigger than the Tim Donaghy thing in the NBA. It's going to happen to one sport. I don't know who it is or what sport it is, but it will happen because everybody has the app on their phone.
Everybody. And here's the big thing. This is why baseball's never letting Pete Rose back in. Everybody's like, oh, it's been 25 years, 30 years. He was betting on his team to win. It doesn't matter. If you know history, baseball, Major League Baseball was almost derailed before the sport ever got off the ground. Go back and look at the Black Sox scandal of 1919. Guys, baseball almost went defunct as a sport. And if it wasn't for Babe Ruth, introducing the game to the home run, because the home run wasn't part of the sport really until Babe Ruth, and the Roaring 20s coming with that, baseball would have died. This is the biggest. PD use is not as big. There's no scandal in sports that is as big as betting on the sport. And I don't care if you're betting on your team every game. I don't care if you're betting on other teams in your sport and not your own team. You compromise everything. And for the record, even if you're betting on your team to win every day, you're still skewing the odds for the bookmakers, because if you're doing that, they're like, why are you not betting on the day you don't bet on your team? They're going to be like, why are you not betting on your team? And so I've been one of the most pro legalized sports gambling people out there. I'm hardcore in favor of it. I am also hardcore in favor of not necessarily programs, but the sports, not the literal death penalty, but the sports death penalty for anybody that bets on the sport they play. That is the most compromising thing you can do. And unless it's professional wrestling, which acknowledges it's fake, it is a serious issue. And by the way, I think this is something where Congress should step in. Congress should step in and say, if you bet on the sports you play, that's a federal crime. And you are facing federal prison at that point.
Bottom line is, Caleb, if they find someone doing this, they're going to hammer them. They're going to absolutely hammer them. Forget academic scandals. And you're right. PED didn't influence the outcome of games. It influenced the records. But it is something that listen, you got 18-year-old kids, Caleb, who suddenly have some NIL money. So it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. And I mentioned my son a lot. My son has a friend who has the app on his phone. He's 18 years old, and he loves to gamble and loses, because everybody loses because it's gambling. And they build the big buildings and casinos in Las Vegas because of that. Gambling is more prevalent than I think you think, especially with young people. And suddenly these guys have a little bit of money in their pocket. So what's the big deal? I've still got a couple of $1,000s in my bank from my NIL deal. Why don't I drop $100 on the NFL? Because I've always been a Rams fan, and they're favored by 7, and I think they'll cover. And what does it matter? I'm only betting $100, right? No big deal. That is a huge deal.
It's a gigantic deal.
And I'll tell you why, because once you get in with those bookies, they're going to start to twist your arm if you're providing information. And it's just a slippery slope. And it being legalized basically just opens up the floodgates.
Ask the NBA. Forget the Tim Donaghy scandal, which is bad enough, because I actually firmly believe that Game 6 Sacramento Lakers game, the Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals in 2002, I firmly believe that game was fixed. And yeah, because we all knew that the NBA Finals wasn't a finals, because the winner of that series was going to sweep the Nets. So they needed 7 games of the Western Conference Finals to get their money. I firmly believe that. Ask the NBA how serious this is. When they were having to investigate Michael Jordan for gambling back in 1993, look, I'm going to say it. I think he was in a forced sabbatical, because can you imagine what Michael Jordan getting banned from the NBA for gambling would have done to the sport? Would have wrecked the sport. Never would have come back from that.
I still believe he was suspended quietly for 2 years, and that's why he played baseball.
Oh, I do too. I firmly believe he was suspended quietly for 2 years.
Yeah, I think only 2 people know that. The late David Stern and Michael Jordan.
Yep.
I think it was in an office with nobody else, and I will believe that till the day I die.
Oh, I will too. Michael Jordan had some checks written out to some very, very shady bookies that had gone to prison during that time. And yeah, this is a serious issue. I can't stress this. It's the worst thing you can do, and this is why Pete Rose should never be let back into baseball. You can't let Pete Rose back in.
And here's the other thing. I know Tennessee has like NIL meetings, and I'm sure every other school does, that you have to pay your taxes and all that. They've got so much going on, these college programs, that are you doing seminars on gambling? Could that slip between the cracks? They've got to go to all these other seminars on what's legal in NIL to pay your taxes and all that other stuff. At what point does one thing slip between the cracks? And this could be the biggest one. So keep an eye
Athletic
on.
directors, listen to Dave and I. Listen, if you want your program to stay safe, you need to get on top of this.
They do.